Welcome to Ahmed's World Time Trek. Today we will look into captivating history of Cuba, a land rich in culture and heritage. Join us as we embark on a journey through the centuries, exploring the events and transformations that shaped this Caribbean island. The island of Cuba was inhabited by three distinct indigenous groups: the Taínos, the Siboneyes, and the Guanajatabes. Each group had its own unique culture, language, and way of life. The Guanajatabes were believed to be the earliest inhabitants of the island. They were a cave-dwelling people, known for their resourcefulness and adaptation to the island's natural environment. However, due to the limited historical records available, much of their specific history and customs remain shrouded in mystery. The Siboneyes, originally members of the Arawak group from South America, migrated to Cuba and settled on the island. They lived a more basic and subsistence-based lifestyle compared to the later Taino civilization. The Siboneyes were known for their hunting, gathering, and fishing practices. The Taínos, the largest indigenous group in Cuba, arrived on the island in the 1400s. Migrating from the West Indies. They brought with them a more advanced agricultural system, pottery-making skills, and a complex social structure. The Taínos established permanent settlements, practiced agriculture, and engaged in trade with neighboring islands. In the 15th century, Cuba became a focal point of exploration as European powers set their sights on the New World. In 1492, Christopher Columbus arrived in Cuba during his first voyage to the New World. He explored various parts of the island and encountered the indigenous people. Christopher Columbus's had a devastating impact on the island's people. Columbus and his men enslaved the island's people and forced them to work on sugar plantations and in gold mines. Many died from diseases brought by the Europeans, and their culture was gradually destroyed. Columbus himself committed numerous atrocities against the indigenous people. He is known to have ordered the hanging of 12 Taino leaders, and he also had many Taino men sold into slavery. Columbus's son, Diego, was even more brutal. He is known to have massacred hundreds of people, and he also enslaved many women and children. The Spanish conquest of Cuba was a horrific event that resulted in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of indigenous people. Columbus and his men played a leading role in this genocide. The Spanish claimed Cuba as part of their expanding empire and began establishing settlements and forts along the coast. The arrival of the Spanish marked the beginning of the colonial era in Cuba, as the island became a strategic base for further exploration and colonization in the Americas. One of the most important developments in Cuba during the 16th century was the growth of the sugar industry. Sugar was a valuable commodity in Europe, and Cuba was well suited for its production. The island's climate and soil were ideal for growing sugarcane, and there was a large supply of enslaved Africans to work on the plantations. By the end of the 16th century, Cuba had become one of the leading producers of sugar in the world. The sugar industry generated a great deal of wealth for the Spanish colonists, and it led to the development of new towns and cities. The indigenous Taino population suffered greatly from diseases brought by the Europeans and the harsh labor conditions imposed upon them. The Taino population of Cuba had been reduced by over 90%. The 17th century witnessed Cuba's growing importance in the Spanish colonial empire. The island became a hub for the transatlantic slave trade, with enslaved Africans brought to work on sugar plantations and in mining operations. In 1628, the Dutch West India Company launched a surprise attack on Havana, Cuba's capital. Led by Admiral Piet Hein, the Dutch fleet easily captured the city, dealing a significant blow to Spain. The occupation lasted over a year before the Spanish recaptured Havana in 1629. This event showcased Spain's vulnerability and emphasized Cuba's strategic importance. The Dutch seizure disrupted the global sugar trade by capturing a valuable Spanish silver shipment. Despite some violence, the Dutch occupation was relatively peaceful compared to other European powers in the region. The capture of Havana left a lasting impact on Cuba's history and trade dynamics in the Caribbean. Sugar production became increasingly profitable, leading to the emergence of wealthy sugar barons who wielded significant economic and political power. The Spanish crown implemented various regulations and restrictions on trade in order to maintain control over Cuba's growing wealth. In 1691, a devastating earthquake struck Santiago de Cuba, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. As the second-largest city on the island, the earthquake dealt a severe blow to Santiago de Cuba's infrastructure and population. Despite aid from the Spanish government, the city took years to recover. Meanwhile, in 1697, the Treaty of Ryswick ended the 9 Years' War between France and Spain. The treaty recognized Spain's control over Cuba and its other Caribbean possessions. This victory solidified Spain's dominance in the region and set the stage for Cuba's subsequent growth as a major player in sugar production. The 17th century was a time of significant change and development in Cuba. The Spanish colony continued to grow and expand, with Havana becoming a major port city and the center of trade in the Caribbean. However, the century was also marked by conflict and upheaval as Cuba was attacked by pirates and foreign powers, and its people suffered from disease and economic hardship. By the 18th century, Cuba had become a significant producer of sugar, with large-scale plantations dominating the landscape. The wealth generated by sugar cultivation led to the development of a distinct social hierarchy, with the sugar barons at the top and a vast population of enslaved Africans and their descendants at the bottom. Cuba's strategic location made it a target for other European powers. The British launched several unsuccessful invasions, including the famous attack on Havana in 1762. The British seized Havana in a significant victory during the 7 Years' War, gaining control of a vital Spanish port in the Caribbean. 1763, under the Treaty of Paris, the British returned Havana to Spain in exchange for Florida, marking the end of the 7 Years' War. The Haitian Revolution begins, resulting in the overthrow of French colonial rule in Haiti. Many French refugees seek sanctuary in Cuba to escape the revolution's violence. 1793. The Spanish crown abolishes the Royal Havana Company due to financial troubles and its unpopularity among Cuban merchants. Throughout these centuries, Cuba's population evolved into a diverse mix of indigenous people, Europeans, Africans, and their descendants. This cultural fusion laid the foundation for the vibrant and unique Cuban identity that endures to this day. As the 18th century came to a close, the seeds of independence were sown. Cuba's desire for self-rule began to grow, setting the stage for the turbulent times that would shape its destiny in the centuries to come. As we conclude our journey through Cuban history with Ahmed World Time Trek, we have delved into the captivating story of this vibrant island nation, from its indigenous roots to the eve of the 19th century. In next video we will share you to Cuba 20th century. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like these.